Hello and welcome to the Friends webinar Beyond Biztalk. It's my pleasure to welcome you to a much needed, or should I say, urgent discussion. My name is Fernanda Schmidt and I'll be your host today. Microsoft Biztalk has been the backbone of integration for many organizations for decades, but with its end of life, it's time to face reality. What happens next? To help you navigate that and make sure that you have a solid plan behind your migration project, we are bringing together three migration experts together today. This webinar is not about selling replacements. We are here to share knowledge and help teams like yours migrate, of course, because you will eventually have to face this migration sooner or later. So let me introduce you to our speakers and migration experts. Welcome, Stephen, Anders, and Sebastian.
Hi, Fernanda. Hi, everyone.
Welcome. Stephen Van Eycken is an integration specialist with nearly 2 decades of hands-on experience with Biztalk and modern integration architectures. He works as business integration engineer and managing partner at Integration Team. Welcome, Stephen.
Hello, thank you.
Next, we have Anders Jung with over 25 years in IT. At Red Pill Impro, Anders contributes to the creation of a structured 4-step migration model. Welcome, Anders.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And we have Sebastian Demon, who is a solution architect at Friends and works closely with customers in the early stages of the integration and migration journeys. Welcome, Sebastian.
Thank you, Fernanda. Nice to be here.
Great to have you all, and thank you everyone who joined us. I want to encourage you who are watching to participate. As always, we have a Q&A in the end, so you go to the questions tab you see below and fire up your questions. You can send them throughout the webinar and I'll go over them towards the end. And I've already spoken too much, so I think it's time to let the three of you take the spotlight. Shall we get started?
Let's do it.
I want to kick off with Stephen, because you've worked with Biztalk for over 20 years, like since the early 2000s. And would you say that companies are ready to migrate, and why?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it correctly in the introduction, Fernanda. Biztalk has been a real backbone for automation of internal processes for many years. And we saw that organizations really built entire ecosystems around it with complex orchestrations, custom pipeline components, adapters, and so on. But there is also the risk that companies are not ready today, because often what we noticed is that Biztalk stayed hidden in the background. It's a bit a black box for business. As long as it kept running, nobody was questioning it, nobody was complaining. But that also meant that over time, and that's an evolution that we saw the last couple of years, knowledge faded away. Documentation is often outdated, or even worse, sometimes non-existing. So integrations running on Biztalk became a kind of developer memory. So over the last years, of course, the business landscape, but also the way how business is interacting with IT has changed quite a lot. And the IT landscape overall changed as well. We're moving to cloud-first architectures. We're moving to API-driven integrations, event-driven designs. We have business with advanced BI reporting needs. And Biztalk simply didn't evolve in that same direction or at that same pace. So to answer the question, are organizations ready today? In most cases, I think not yet. I think a lot of organizations seem to be waiting on the magical Microsoft solution, the one click on the button automatic migration, but it's not going to come. Luckily, what we also see is that there is a slow shift because organizations do understand that the Biztalk migration isn't just a technical challenge, it's also an opportunity to do a strategic modernization within the entire landscape as well.
Yeah, and I really love listening to you talk about Biztalk, because you have such a critical perspective, but also like so much knowledge. And I want to go back to Anders now. And connect to one thing that you said, Stephen, which is about like one size fits all. You're waiting for the perfect solution. And Anders, you have a long career working and leading migration projects. And is Biztalk just a migration? Do you see it as a one size fits all type of work?
No, certainly not. As Stephen mentioned, a lot has happened in IT and around integration and patterns and platforms. So there is no platform that enables you to perform a single one-to-one shift. You need to accept a lot of rebuilding of integrations for this migration effort. But while it takes a lot of effort, it's still a great opportunity to improve any pain points you have and in your current integration environment. But you can also take the opportunity to make important steps in your digitalization journey. Of course, every business is different. It needs to be a tailored migration. It's no one size fits all, not in terms of platform and not in terms of your business and organization. And our rebuilding process is based around that. We have developed this 4-step process with the steps analysis and then workshop and then a pilot migration and then the final iterative migration. And each step has clear deliverables and you can choose not to continue with the next step in our model if you like, and still get value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. And Sebastian, you come from a slightly different perspective, right? Because you're the one that it's in the room talking to companies when they're starting the process or thinking about it. So what is the first thing that you hear when you're talking to these companies that have decided to look into an alternative?
Yeah, I mean, there is a few things that are common that usually comes up. And I mean, the first thing is that they have been, Stephen were touching upon this as well, like they have invested a lot in Biztalk, and they kind of say like, it just works, but sometimes they're really not sure actually how it works, but it works. But then when something needs to get changed or something needs to be added and so on, it can be hard to find consultants because the Biztalk competence is starting to get scarce, and that also kind of trickles down into a higher TCO, total cost of ownership. And some other things that we see that kind of pose a security risk is that there are some are running really old versions, both when it comes to Biztalk, but also when it comes to Windows and SQL servers and so on. Another thing that we hear is that if you're running heavily on Biztalk, then you are likely a Microsoft house, and they have been starting to looking into AI, Azure integration services, because organization thinks that are the only option to replace Biztalk, but that's not entirely correct, I would say. And the last thing is like it has been touched by both Stephen and Anders. I mean, they are looking to kind of be more modern with their approach and looking into more API first approach, and Biztalk might not be the best solution for that. I would say that are some of the common themes that we hear when we start in the early phases talking to organizations.
Mm-hmm. And I think all of you already started pinpointing some of the challenges or the problems that these companies will start to face increasingly as the end of life arrives. So, Stephen, can you help us understand what's really at stake when these decisions keeps getting delayed?
I think the simple answer is, the lot of vendor support, of course. Like Sebastian mentioned, when Biztalk goes out of support, there will be no security patches anymore. There will be no more fixes. There are no guarantee that underlying components like your Windows OS or your SQL Server will stay compatible. At the same time, we also will get no longer updates on specific adapters, for example, which can also lead that those adapters become potentially unusable in the future if the underlying application or protocol layer is changing as well. At the same time, and that's what I mentioned before, I think the hidden risk is the black box effect. I think that the people who build it are often no longer part of the organization, or they decided to move their own career forward and go into new technology, so they don't want to touch Biztalk too much anymore. But at the same time, yeah, Biztalk is still used to automate business critical processes. So there is a business risk as well. If Biztalk goes down for any reason, you don't have vendor support, there is a impact on your business continuity as well. It's not just an IT operations questions. So yeah, this might impact operational flows like payments, logistic flows, customer onboarding, partner transactions. So I think, yeah, the real danger isn't really the end of life on itself. It's a bit the false sense of security. Every year that you wait, then the risk becomes larger, and it's not an easy exercise to migrate. Like Sebastian mentioned, there are a lot of platforms available today, so it's a good platform selection track that you need to go through, looking at your current situation, current requirements, but also your future modernization roadmap.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I like the more holistic approach at looking at the problem, and that is something that you also do, right? And there's like looking from the architecture and the organization perspective. How complex do you see these migrations? Like how complex can they be?
Yeah, well, they can be very complex. It's again very different for different businesses, which is an important factor in this migration. But integration always usually hides a lot of complexity, and if you treated it as a black box, it of course is a much bigger risk to include a lot of complexity, and you can't really plan this migration from not knowing. So you need to start planning and investigating. But again, it's a great opportunity to take steps to modernize. Since the world is moving much faster now, the IT world, than when Biztalk was released. So you want to have another perspective when introducing a new platform that is more agile and moves with the times.
You're going to say something, Steven.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's like Anders mentioned. It's on one hand there is the business impact. At the same time, in the past, we took decisions based on technology requirements that were available back then. Today, those requirements are different. The landscape is changing, the roadmap is changing, the vision is changing potentially as well. We need to take into account more complex things like climate change and making sure that we are running our solutions on green power and things like that as well. So there are a lot of more external factors that are coming into play as well. So it's the Biztalk migration goes beyond the purely technical part.
Yeah, and this is a quite interesting topic, I would say. Do you see with all those changes and developments, Sebastian? Do you see when you talk to companies still on Biztalk that there are a lot of misconceptions still when it comes to migrating? What do they get wrong about it?
Yeah, there are several misconceptions, but if you kind of boil it down to three common ones, it has been touched by both Anders and Steven, but the first is kind of that migration will be quick, or actually the opposite, that it will be so complex that they should postpone it. But I mean, the truth is really that, well, it is complex, as Anders was saying, but it doesn't have to be complicated when you approach it more methodically. So that's one thing. And another is to thinking that Biztalk is still kind of fine for the modern needs. Anders were saying that I mean, today the IT landscape are moving so quick, and Biztalk wasn't built for API first, cloud native, or real-time environments really. So staying put actually becomes a limitation. And I can also mention here that before Friend's iPaaS was released in 2016, Friend was actually shipped together with Biztalk, but we saw like, I mean, we kind of need to move to kind of a little bit more modern approach here. And then finally, it's not just about to move code when you think about migration. It's actually a chance to simplify or an opportunity to remove years of technical debt and actually future-proof the integration landscape with the things like, for example, API gateways, like more low-code process automation when it comes to more native cloud support. And one big thing is, of course, observability.
Yeah, future proofing, I think, is one of the big words in the discussion today, and it helps us flip the perspective a bit. I would say you already touched upon it, Sebastian. If we see migration not as purely a cost, but as an opportunity, so what can companies actually gain from it? We can start with you, Sebastian. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, when you treat it as an opportunity rather than a cost, companies actually has a lot to win. I mean, the first thing, as I mentioned, is like you can, it's a chance to eliminate a technical debt. Biztalk, I mean, the environments often contains outdated orchestration, unused components and such. And when you move to a more modern platform, many of those complex Biztalk orchestration actually can be consolidated into a far few cleaner processes. And this immediately also reduces the complexity. And in real projects here at Friends, we have seen that the numbers of processes typically ends up being only 50 to 75% of the original orchestrations and reports in Biztalk. And secondly, you gain more modern visibility and governance. Biztalk is hard to monitor, and with transparent integration platforms, that will give you more real-time insights into what's actually happening, and kind of also like more clear versioning, like full audit trails, what has been happening, who has been doing changes, and also centralized governance across like these more modern things like API, cloud, and on-prem system. So black box has been mentioned a few times. So kind of that is kind of what we at Friends, and it's a little bit of our foundation to kind of get rid of that black box. And third, integration becomes easier for the whole organization with this kind of low-code modeling. Integration doesn't just sit exclusively with the Biztalk specialist, but system owners, integration teams that might not working directly on this integration, and also kind of more people from the business side. They can contribute without even having the deep knowledge of the platform, because I mean it's more visualized, and you can easily get an understanding of what's actually happening and kind of break down the barriers between the tech and the business side. And well, a lot of things here, but
a lot of opportunities.
I have a couple more, but sorry, Stephen.
Do you agree, Stephen?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point. I think the way how integration platform was designed in the past has changed over the years. Observability is more and more important. I think we all know that technical and even and certainly functional logging and monitoring was quite complex with Biztalk, so that led to a lot of custom frameworks. And today we feel the need from business to know what's happening in that integration layer, what's happening with that order that my client has sent towards me. I want to be able to follow it. And it also enables business to participate, play a role in the way how we build an integration flow or an integration process, because with the low-code tooling, they can build the initial flow. If you look at Friends, but it's same with the more citizen development tools as well. They can actively participate in it as well. So again, that narrows that gap between business and IT, and you can really deliver solutions that are made for business, not just from a technical point of view. We need to receive something, translate it, and send it to SAP or whatever system. So that's quite important. And I think, again, if we translate that to a Biztalk migration, it's really starting out of the what do we have today. Build that on one hand, interface catalog is that service catalog, which are the applications that we want to target as well. What is the roadmap for those applications? If we know that we're using Biztalk today to interface towards a legacy application that will disappear in a year, don't put effort in it. Make a strategic plan around it as well. So the way how we do things changed quite a lot, and the technology changed as well, providing new capabilities that we didn't have when with Biztalk.
And we've had a lot of chats ahead of the webinar, and I think this point of unlocking transformation beyond integration was something that Anders, you mentioned quite a lot as well. So what does that look like in practice, would you say?
Yeah, so I've seen real value there in some big integration platform migrations I've been part of, where we actually took the effort to look what can we improve, and started using agile ways of working and things like automated build, test, and deployments like CI/CD and infrastructure as code, and a lot of those things can be hard to get started with. So this is a good opportunity to make the steps that are reasonable for your organization. Like everyone organization will be different, but we can help coach you in like where you can take these steps. And from what I've seen, you can implement this for integration, and then that becomes a success story, and you can adopt it throughout IT. And then, as Stephen and Sebastian mentioned, like the gap between IT and the business. So we can't treat IT as a black box like we used to back in the day. Now it's so intertwined, and you start to unlock real business value, and it starts to unlock business opportunities when you start to move this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just mention one more thing. I mean, now we have been going on here for 22 minutes, and we haven't been talking about AI. Probably some type of record here in 2025. But I mean, we need to actually mention it, because every iPaaS solution, they are talking about AI now, and I mean, we do it as well. But what does it actually look in practice? In our case, we have something that we call an AI connector that lets you kind of add in AI tasks directly into the processes in a pretty straightforward way, like kind of like when you do this drag and drop with any task that we have. And then also kind of having AI assistant that can help to kind of generate patterns and document processes, and which can actually greatly help to speed up development. These kind of things that you're kind of missing in Biztalk as well, or in more legacy integration platforms. So yeah, I mean, that's something that definitely can help. And then of course, to making sure that we have guardrails and kind of security standards and GDPR compliance and all this kind of embedded as well. But yeah, all in all, it's not just about replacing Biztalk, but also coming out with more leaner, more transparent and future-ready integration landscape.
And adding a little to that, reducing the gaps is also reducing like gaps between silos that can be in IT. Like your data analytics team, I've seen, is often separated from your integration team, but it's usually the same data. And having control of your data, that's what enables some real AI use cases.
So Stephen, you were going to say, yeah.
Yeah, we survived 25 minutes without mentioning AI. So I think that's a new record. But no, I agree. I think everyone who knows me personally knows that I'm a bit of an AI skeptic. Not that I don't believe in the technology or the capabilities that it brings, but I do have the feeling that a lot of the decisions around AI within organizations today are being done more out of a fear of missing out than having an actual clear idea of what we want to do with it. The one thing that I'm convinced of is that, or whatever AI initiative you take, it will only be as successful as the data where you build it upon. And I think that there is the power of your integration landscape as well, because a lot of your data, a lot of your messaging is flowing over that integration layer and can be used to make your AI models better, to make your data more accurate. So there are certainly opportunities there as well. I do agree.
Yeah, you can't have AI without integration in the end.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and we're talking a lot about businesses, like the organizational level, but there's also the individual impact, the potential. Because for a long time, we've had the Biztalk developers, and it was seen as a huge career opportunity. So what happens now? Like, Stephen, what would you say?
Well, I think Biztalk as a technology has always been a bit of a niche platform. I think in Belgium, it's certainly the case that there aren't that many Biztalk experts available, and that was already the case 20 years ago. Now, at the same time, the core of what we are doing as integration developers goes beyond the technology alone. The reason why I'm still passionate after 20 years on the field of integrations is the fact that it put me in a situation where I was able to learn a lot, and not just that Biztalk platform. If you wanted to build solid integrations with SAP, then you would need to build at least some base knowledge on how SAP works and how to interact with it. It's the same on the topic of security, on the topic of network with cloud-driven architectures as well. So that's a skill set that is still useful today. The idea and the concept on how you look at an integration and how you decide to implement a certain integration pattern, for example, that doesn't change necessarily. The way how you will do it in another tool set will potentially change, but the concept of that pattern will not change, and that the many years of technical and functional know-how as well will remain relevant as well.
Do you agree, Anders?
Oh yes, absolutely. I think that the platform is not your specialty when you work this way. It's integration that's your specialization, and that's a very broad specialization. It's a broad area, and as a Biztalk specialist, you will be key in this migration effort, and it's a great opportunity to see how that translates to a new platform.
Mm-hmm. What opportunities do you see for them, Sebastian?
I mean, I'm from France, so I mean, if I put on that hat, I mean, the natural next step is to becoming a French developer, because as both Anders and Stefan were mentioning here, I mean, if you are a Biztalk developer, you already understand things like message-based orchestration, integration, orchestration, schemas, mappings, and so on. And I mean, that kind of maps very cleanly into how friends or how integrations are modeled in France. The difference is a little bit, I mean, it's a little bit quicker, or maybe a lot quicker, and a lot more transparent than it is like when you're building it in Biztalk today. But I mean, the mindset is actually the same. And most Biztalk developers, I mean, they can pick up friends in actually days and not months, because I mean, there are a lot of commonalities, and also with some more structured support through the academy that we have, and also when it comes to like certifying yourself and making sure that you feel confident in going into this new solution. And then of course, like when it comes to .NET, I mean, that is a skill that Biztalk developers already have, and that can be brought with them in when it comes to friends as well. When you need to kind of do some extension of the platform or such, I mean, then it's .NET and C# that's used for that. So, I mean, yeah, a natural next step is of course to become a friends developer from my perspective.
And thank you all. And we're talking about what's possible, right? So now let's talk about what can go wrong once a Biztalk migration is in process. What are the most common mistakes, Anders, that companies make when they start the migration?
Yeah, a big one is underestimating complexity. Not planning ahead because you underestimate the complexity, so it becomes a race. And sorry, lost my train of thought. Let's move to the next speaker.
No worries.
No, but I get what you're saying, Anders. I think indeed, I think take a slow pace. Look at your current situation and try to divide it into specific phases. Take your time to do it, but also take the opportunity to reinvent a little bit. I don't see a Biztalk migration as a copy paste of what we have today. See it as an opportunity to optimize things, to optimize performance, optimize security as well. Don't go for the big bang because it will not work.
And I can add on now, integration is very well suited to do it iteratively, because it's usually separate into different messages, different integrations, and so it's rational to move one at a time and validate and make your assumptions meet reality, so you can adjust and pivot like the agile way that you do successful IT projects.
Mm-hmm. And Stephen, do you see specific industries that are more at risk when it comes to these pitfalls?
Yeah, I think certainly. I think if you look at more regulated industries like banking and insurance, government, those are really industries that are frequently audited, and that might even not be allowed to run on an unsupported integration platform. So there, it's not just a technical problem anymore. It becomes a compliance issue as well. Auditors will question it. In some cases, yeah, it can even violate regulatory requirements and block your business. You won't be allowed to execute your day-to-day business anymore. So, and typically those are also the industries that tend to have the most hidden dependencies, like a lot of custom adapters to communicate with legacy databases and the mainframe solutions and things like that as well. So I think there are certainly specific domains that are more at risk.
And Sebastian, you usually join the calls early in the process, and when the discussions are beginning, and so on, the plan is starting to take shape. So how do you help companies identify and avoid these traps like early on?
Yeah, I mean, when I joined the early discovery calls, I mean, my main job is to understand kind of what is the current situation and also to uncover the desired future. And where we can also help the customer to actually, as you mentioned, see the traps before they actually step into them. And during this process, we want to be as diligent as possible already during the early stages or early phases. And many organizations, it has been mentioned a few times, I mean, they think about this often as kind of more of a lift and shift. And if we can help them open their minds a little bit by asking questions like what still adds value, what can be simplified, and also to think about it from the more business side. I mean, what challenges or need does this actually solve? Do we need to have this integration, or do we need to kind of revamp it, or can we remove it completely? And it has also been mentioning about kind of how important it is to kind of map out the needs and kind of both from the current state, but also from and get the visibility into that, but also to think about the future state. And when we engage with organization, or when I engage with organization in the early stages, the goal is to get them as comprehensive understanding of both, I mentioned that, but the current and the future state, but also about kind of what are the actual change drivers of this. And we have a process for this that we call a technical deep dive, which also kind of can be of great help in the future on like kind of when you actually step into the migration work. So you have already done a bit of the kind of discovery on these parts that can then be reutilized. And I mean, when it comes to the approaches, Anders mentioned that, I mean, to kind of shift the mindset a little bit from the kind of big bang to more of an iterative process, and not just doing everything at once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have one question for all of you. So if for people who are watching us now and are still on Biztalk, what is the first step that they should take tomorrow? Who wants to start?
Yeah,
I can start. Sorry. Yeah,
No,
you
go
need
ahead.
to realize that you need to start planning soon. And there could be a lot of hidden complexity, or a lot or a little, different for everyone. And I like to promote our four-step model at Red Pill Impro, of course, which I think is excellent, where we can help you do analysis both of the current platform, your integration landscape, but also your organizational capabilities and where there are possibilities to unlock potential.
No, I agree. I think, start with building your inventory, know what you have today, know what you don't have today, make sure that you identify the gaps in documentation, the things that were built where you don't know the reasoning anymore, and so on. Make your interface catalogs, make your platform catalogs as well, and don't just choose your new platform based on what you have running today. Make it a part of your long-term vision as well, and decide based on your future roadmap, how do you want to modernize your IT landscape, and how does whatever platform you choose fit in it as well.
Sebastian?
Yeah, and to add to on what Steve was saying, that kind of, and also kind of think of what's actually reusable. I mean, from a friend's perspective, kind of try to understand where could friends fit here, and kind of how can we help the migration part. I mean, when it comes to .NET and reusable, using those type of component that has been built in Biztalk. And also, like when it comes down to when you have identified like this is a good use case that we would like to try out, do a proof of concept or proof of value to actually showcase like how can this actually be managed or handled.
Mm-hmm. What KPIs should they aim for, Anders?
So everyone will try to compare licensing cost and perhaps cost of run of infrastructure. Those are the simple ones, but I like to note that keep in mind your rate of innovation, not just your rate of producing integrations, but you can actually unlock more agility on your whole IT delivery. And if you start to work on maintainability and observability and automations, you can both realize savings and improve your rate of innovation. And we mentioned before, avoid reliance on expensive skills when you choose your path forward. And you want to try to quantify this to draft your KPIs. And Red Pill Limpo can help with that. Those are some of our deliverables in our analysis and workshop phases. So, yeah.
Thank you. I see that we received a lot of questions from the audience, but before we get to them, anything you would like to add, Sebastian and Steven? On the KPIs, of course.
Oh, I think Anders explained it quite well, so I agree with it.
Yeah, I can just concur as well.
Great. So let's see what the audience wants to hear from you. Did you use Friends Biztalk migration toolkit? It would be interesting to hear more of this toolkit and how we can simplify our Biztalk to Friends migration.
Yeah, I guess I can take that. And the Biztalk toolkit, migration toolkit, was initiative before I joined. I joined 4 months ago, almost on the day. And that is actually been put on hold until further development. But I mean, as I talked about a little bit before, when it comes to the migration, it's actually kind of assess what can be reused, like when it comes to the different things that have been built in Biztalk, and then kind of take the more structured approach that both Anders and Steven has been talking about here.
Emil wants to know, you talk about citizen development. What are your thoughts about maintaining those solutions? Who is responsible for these? Usually an integration team takes care of maintaining all integrations. How do you manage this with citizen development?
Yeah, I'll take that one because I think I mentioned the citizen development part. I think there the difficulty is really making a clear distinction between, and that should be part of your overall company governance and best practice. I think for me, citizen development, if you look at it from a purely, let's say, tooling like Office 365 and Microsoft Flow, for example, then really allow those use cases that help the individual with optimizing the way he works, the way how he does things, and really optimize his day-to-day work, which is entirely different from me compared to really your enterprise integration landscape where you're driving those business critical solutions where you want to make sure that it's maintained by a centralized team that works in a same way with governance applied on topics like security, connectivity, documentation, and so on. So that's an important differentiation to make as well. For me, citizen development, yes, if it helps you as an individual, fine. If it's really on the organizational level, then really leave it up to the integration team, the experts. That doesn't mean that a citizen cannot be included in it. Like I mentioned before, if we look, for example, at Friends with the BPM model, you can certainly involve a business person to help design the process, but the actual technical parts, of course, there you need that technical expertise as well, of course.
Yeah, I'd like to add, you can use like a tiered approach. You can have your citizen integrators as a group of highly skilled, like for example, data analysts working on your data platform. They are highly skilled in certain areas, and you can enable them to do proof of concepts, and you can, if you want, limit their how they go to production. You want to control of that part, so you can structure in different ways to enable more innovation, but still keep control of it. And usually you want to have like a center of excellence or an integration competency center, something to emanate good practices and security and all those important things.
Yeah. And I also want to highlight that we published a couple months ago a white paper about the Integration Center for Development, we call C4E, which is sort of a modernized approach to the ICC. So there, it's a very like non-partisan type of white paper where we describe how you can actually implement this in a secure and efficient way. We can send you the link right after the webinar. We have a follow-up from Ivan, who was the one that asked about the toolkit. When is it going to be available, or will it not be available? And we will get back to you on this, unless you have details, Sebastian.
I don't have any further details, so let's get back to it.
We'll reach out to you. Omer wants to know, how will existing tracking and historical data from Biztalk databases be handled and migrated to example friends? I think that's one's for you as well, Sebastian.
Yeah, I mean, I don't typically think we actually migrate like the tracking historical data into Friends. I don't know exactly what that might contain, but that's not. I wouldn't say that that's actually part of the migration. I don't know if Steven and Anders has another view on that.
Well, I tend to take a very big approach and during like analysis phase identify these kinds of questions and what is a good path for us and tailor it to your needs.
We have time for one final question. Let's see. Robin asked, for a company with a small IT team, what is a realistic timeline for a Biztalk migration?
I think there are a lot of unknown factors to answer that question. I think a lot will depend on the complexity of what your Biztalk is doing today. I think it depends whether you're using Biztalk, which is running 10 integrations versus potentially 100 automated business processes. So quite difficult to answer that one without any insights on the actual layer.
Yeah. It's the number of integrations, like how complex the integrations are, number of messages, what is like your requirements on how fast, is it like near real-time data, or is it like a batch job every night? It's a lot of factors to take in before one can answer that.
Yeah.
It's the perfect question to answer Jacob's question as well, Fernanda. So let's take one more.
I was gonna actually say, because I don't want to leave you without a number, but we did have another Biztalk webinar a few months ago, and we had an actual real case presented, and it was of the municipality in Sweden. And we had Magnus Olofsson, who is one of their developers, explaining how they did all of it in 6 months. So if you want a number, you can go back to the previous webinar and understand how it was possible, what were the details behind it, and then you can have an idea. But I don't want to leave you without a proper number answer. So 6 months, that was possible. We have to start to wrap up. If you have asked something and we didn't have time to answer it, we got you covered. We will, as we did with the previous questions that we said we would get back to you. So our team will make sure to address all of that and reach out to you. Also, feel free to connect to our speakers on LinkedIn, ask follow-up questions, just keep in touch with us. And just before we wrap up, I'd love a quick final thought from each of you. If you were to give one piece of advice for organizations still running Biztalk today, what would that be?
I think, like mentioned before, don't wait on the magic solution, the one click on the button deployment. It's not going to come. And the longer you wait, the harder it will become to migrate away from Biztalk.
I'd like to say use this as an opportunity to modernize and unlock some serious potential, both in integration and your IT delivery organization.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say start small, but start now. I mean, even just a proof of concept or proof of value can actually kind of unlock or get you to understand what path should we take forward.
Yeah, really good. I think the message is clear. Like, migration goes beyond leaving Biztalk behind. It is about building the foundation for the future. And if I were to sum up the key takeaways from today, let's say what you've all pointed out. So the urgency is about reducing risk, of course. With the end of support, you will face security risks and a shrinking pool of experts. There's also, of course, the risk attached to like visibility. We talked a lot about black boxes today. Sebastian just talked about opportunity. So it is an opportunity, not just a migration. When you move to a modern platform, you have the chance to eliminate technical debt, increase business and system visibility, adopt an agile, future-proof integration strategy. You all talked about the no big bang migration. You don't need one. The recommended approach is to start with a structure analysis and a small scale pilot that you can, of course, demonstrate value quickly, build momentum, continue going. And for the developers, your skills are still key. Everything you know about Biztalk is highly valuable. You have modern .NET based platforms like Friends, when Sebastian mentioned, and your team can easily transition their skills quickly, moving to the more strategic development type of things. Do you all think this is a fair assessment? Anything you would like to add?
Oh, nicely done. It's like it's written by an AI bot.
No, it's collective knowledge. I think that's all we have for today. Thank you, Stephen, Anders, and Sebastian for sharing your learnings and decades of experience. I feel like these webinars are always too short. Biztalk has been around for so long. It's such a broad and critical topic. We might need yet another one next year. So we'll keep you posted whenever we have a new webinar coming up. And for you watching us, thank you for your time, for your engagement, for all your thoughtful questions. I hope you are leaving our webinar with a ton of ideas and a clear picture of how you can tackle your migration. If you haven't watched your previous webinar, of course, feel free to do so. I highly recommend. We can send you links afterwards as well. And once again, thank you for joining us. I hope to see you at the next Friends webinar. Goodbye.